Welcome back, my internet family, to my second episode of Dose. This was actually a little harder to get scheduled in terms of shooting this, but I'm going to make this work, even if it kills me. Today we've got some interesting movie news and a couple of promotional images that I'm really excited to show you guys. I also have a really interesting look forward for the movie that's coming out this coming week. However, let us start with the box office rundown. Number one on the box office this week was Hotel Transylvania 2. Now, this is obviously the sequel to Adam Sandler's relatively popular Hotel Transylvania. I honestly had never seen the first movie, and I was not particularly interested in watching the second movie either. They seem interesting and like family friendly, but to the extent of would I actually go and see an Adam Sandler cartoon, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I didn't really enjoy 8 Crazy Nights, so what makes me think that I would enjoy this movie all that much? But apparently the reviews for it aren't so bad, so you never know. I could potentially be bribed into going to see it, maybe even seeing the first one. It really depends. Adam Sandler has been very hit or miss for me. Second on the box office this weekend was The Intern. Now, this was the Anne Hathaway, Robert De Niro comedy. I don't really know how else to describe it because I don't really know what else it is other than an older guy decides to become an intern for a young upcoming entrepreneur CEO in Anne Hathaway. I saw that pairing and I'm just like, this looks like they're really trying. This looks like something that they're like, oh, who's really popular nowadays in terms of female cast? Anne Hathaway, who's a really popular actor from 20, 30 years ago. Robert De Niro, would he be into this? Why the hell not? It seems a little desperate, it seems a little unneeded, to say the least. So needless to say, I'm not very excited for this movie. On Rotten Tomatoes at the moment, I believe it's at a 57%. It's not doing terribly, but it's not doing well either. Number 3 on the box office this week is The Maze Runner: The Scorched Trials. Now, this was number 1 on the box office last weekend, and as a result, you can kind of tell it's starting to dip a little bit below, probably not meeting the expectations of the fans. I'm not entirely sure for the reason for the dip. It is only 3rd place. However, its Rotten Tomato score has actually gotten better by 1%. It was originally at 49%. It is now at 50%. Next on the list is Everest. And again, I have yet to see the movie. I am very interested in seeing it now that I understand the full scope of the actors that are in the movie. Still interested in seeing it at some point. Not dying to run to the theater to see it though. And 5th on the list is Black Mass. Now, this movie I actually was able to catch in theaters twice this weekend, and I will probably give you guys my thoughts on that at a later time and in its own separate review. But for now, Black Mass sits currently 5th on the box office, and that concludes our box office rundown. Moving on to movie news, now a topic that I'm very excited about as it has to do with Marvel. Duh. Chris Evans was talking about Civil War, and he was saying how there's really no clear-cut bad guys in the upcoming movie. Basically, he was doing a rundown of what the plot is going to be, mostly what we expected from the Civil War comic books. Tony wants to have registrations and make sure that superheroes are actually being held accountable for the things that they're doing, whereas Cap has kind of become disillusioned about the whole system of the government and reporting to a higher up, and that superheroes are mainly vigilantes who are doing these things out of the goodness of their hearts, and as a result they shouldn't be regulated. Now, both sides have valid arguments to their positions, and that's what makes Civil War so interesting, is the fact that you don't really know who is going to end up on what side because both sides have a valid point. Should you really have to register yourself just for being a super-powered person and of whom you may not even be a superhero? You may just be a mutant. Especially in the Marvel Comics, the X-Men didn't even want to get involved with the whole debacle because they're like, we got our own registration issues to deal with, which we do not agree with whatsoever. All I really wanted to bring this up was, it's kind of nice that the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't focusing so heavily on trying to find new villains and new bad guys to kind of put up against the Avenger crew. You kind of just have the guys figuring out, well, what is our place in this universe and how do we fit into it? Should we report to somebody? Do we answer to anybody? Do we answer to the people? Do we answer to a higher up? What is our true responsibility in this whole situation, and where do we stand, especially going into into the last sort of bit of the movie and going into the third arc of the story where we're going to eventually get the Infinity War. It's going to be, I think, a pretty interesting ride to see where Civil War takes us prior to Infinity War and what kind of characters we're going to be introduced to as a result of this particular conflict. Our next bit of movie news is actually just kind of promotional images. The Revenant is an upcoming movie that is being released, I want to say December 2015, December 25th, I believe. It's a Christmas Day movie, but it's going to be getting a wide release in January of 2016. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy, and it's being directed by... I don't really want to try and pronounce his name because I know I'm going to botch it royally. It's the same director who did the Birdman movie that just won Best Picture at the Oscars this previous year. A much-deserved Oscar. I really enjoy that movie, and I'm really kind of shocked that that is what the Academy went with in terms of an Oscar pick for the year. So as I'm talking, I'm just kind of letting these promotional images scroll by, and the movie's overall plot is actually a biopic based off of Hugh Glass, who was a fur trapper. I don't know a lot about this particular guy, and I don't really know what his historical relevance is, but seeing the promo images and also hearing that Leonardo DiCaprio is playing the lead role and that it has the director of Birdman, it kind of makes me wonder if this is going to be a potential for DiCaprio to finally get his much-deserved Oscar. It's going to be getting in just in time to be part of the next year's Oscar season. Usually December is the last ditch month for people to really kind of squeeze in their Oscar hopefuls before the year turns over. And usually if a movie gets released in January, that's mainly a dumping ground for studios who are just like, we put the money in the project, we don't think it's going to do very well, so let's just put it out in the masses in January if it's not even going to be up for Oscar season, and by the time the next Oscars comes around, no one's going to remember or give a shit about it, and they'll completely forget we even produced that piece of crap. So it slightly makes me worried that it's getting its technical wide release in January, but they are getting it in just in time for the end of December, which probably means they have high hopes for this movie doing particularly well. Just from the promo images, I'm really looking forward to this movie. I think it really kind of looks interesting, and I think it could probably be one of DiCaprio's best performances, especially after the last few years where we've had absolutely stellar performances out of this guy. I don't see why this shouldn't be his best. Moving right along to my look forward. My look forward for this week is a movie called Partisan. This movie premiered at Sundance a couple of months ago, and it is actually the directorial debut of Ariel Kleiman, who I believe is a Ukrainian director. I may be wrong about that, but at least at some point this director was from the Ukraine. It won an award for Best Cinematography at Sundance, and it stars Vincent Cassel as the lead, or as one of the lead characters, and then it also stars a fairly young boy who is played by Jeremy Cabrel, I want to say. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his name. He's French-Australian, so I'm not even really going to really try for that. He plays our protagonist, who is this really young boy who is raised by Vincent's character and raises a whole bunch of children in a very isolated society to not only learn how to take care of themselves in a situation where, you know, they're completely isolated, so they have to be able to get food and to cook for themselves and to fend for themselves, but also how to be basically trained killers. It sort of provides an interesting perspective of human nature and the way that certain humans perceive the world. Just from watching the trailer, it seems like a very interesting concept that I'm really kind of interested to see where they take it, because it seems like there is this loving and compassionate component to it, but at the same time very disturbing and dreaded. The best way to describe it is a coming-of-age story with a sense of dread and horror. And that I find to be very interesting, because I don't think that's something that's discussed very often as you grow from an age where, like, you are still a child, but you are going through the stages where you are slowly becoming more and more of an adult, and you're learning about more adult things. And I think it's a very interesting perspective and a new way of telling the story in a very sort of post-apocalyptic manner. Regardless, I'm very excited for this movie. I hope I can catch a limited screening of it. If not, I'm hoping it'll get a wider release. And I'm actually very much hoping that it's going to be a lovely start to a director's career, because it looks really interesting. I'd like to see more if the movie turns out to be any good. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been your weekly dose of movie news. You guys are the best. Hit that subscribe button, hit like, comment, let me know what you did or didn't like so I can improve the videos for future uses. I don't know how to end that sentence. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching. See ya.